If you had told me years ago that I would go from absolutely nothing in my bank account to over $510,000 saved, I would have laughed and assumed you had mistaken me for someone far smarter. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more useful. I did not get lucky. I did not inherit anything. I did not stumble into wealth. I simply discovered 7 saving tricks that quietly changed everything. The strange part? Most people ignore every single one of them, even though these are the very habits that separate financial panic from financial peace. Saving trick the 1. The 1-month money lag. The habit that stopped me from being broke. Every Friday. If you have ever been paid on Friday and mysteriously broke again by the next Friday, then trust me, I know exactly how you feel. When I earned my first proper apprenticeship income, my money lasted about as long as a chocolate bar in a school cafeteria. I would get paid, feel unstoppable for exactly 40 minutes, and then slowly watch my bank balance bleed out through takeaways. Small treats and expenses I swore would never happen again. Until one day, an older carpenter pulled me aside and said, "Mark, if you want to stop living like your paycheck is a firework that burns out in one burst, you need to put your money on a delay. Do not spend this month's income this month." At first, I laughed. I thought he was joking. How could I possibly delay spending money I desperately needed right now? But he explained it simply. If you want control over your finances, you must always be living on last month's money, not this month's. That way, your current income becomes your savings, not your survival. I resisted the idea for weeks because, honestly, it felt impossible. Yet the moment I tried it, even in a tiny way, everything changed. I started by saving enough to cover a few days of expenses, then a week. Eventually, I reached a full month. And when I finally hit that point, something incredible happened. I no longer had to panic every time an unexpected bill showed up. The money was already there. I was operating with a buffer, not a blindfold. This trick turned my finances from a frantic guessing game into a calm, predictable system. And the psychological shift was enormous. Suddenly, money was no longer something that controlled me. It was something I controlled. When your expenses for the month are covered before the month even begins, your savings grow naturally because your income no longer disappears the moment it arrives. The funny part? People looked at me like I had become some budgeting wizard. In reality, all I had done was push my spending back 30 days. That tiny delay created more stability than any raise I had ever received. And that is the real saving secret most people never even attempt. They live in real time, reacting to every financial punch. But when you live 1 month ahead, you become financially untouchable. Money stress starts fading. Planning becomes simple. And that creeping panic you feel every time you open your banking app? It begins to disappear. This single trick took me from being the guy who prayed my card would not decline to being the guy who finally had breathing room. And breathing room is the foundation of every financial win that came after. Saving trick number 2, the invisible raise rule. How I built wealth without earning a penny more. One of the biggest lies people believe is that saving becomes easier once they earn more money. It sounds logical. It feels logical. It is completely false. When I finally started earning better income in my 20s, I thought I was about to enter my rich era. I imagined that once I crossed a certain income line, all my financial problems would melt away like snow in the spring. Instead, something bizarre happened. The moment my income increased, my expenses found a way to increase even faster. I began upgrading things I never needed to upgrade. A slightly nicer jacket, a better brand of coffee. A larger apartment, because apparently I suddenly required more space for productivity. What productivity? I was not writing a novel. I was eating biscuits and pretending I was a CEO. It took me far too long to realize what was happening. I had fallen into lifestyle inflation, the silent thief of anyone trying to get ahead, and I was losing the battle badly. Then, one afternoon, while complaining to a mentor that I had more income but the same stress, he looked at me and said a sentence that still sits in my brain like it is carved in stone. "Mark, every time you earn more and change nothing, you become wealthier. Every time you earn more and spend more, you become older with nothing to show for it." That single line hit me like a bag of bricks because it was the opposite of how I was living. So he taught me the method that genuinely changed my financial life. Treat every raise, every bonus, every extra pound or dollar that enters your life as invisible, meaning you behave as if your income never increased at all. At first it sounded restrictive, it sounded boring, it sounded like the adult equivalent of eating vegetables. But the first month I applied it, I felt something incredible for the first time. Genuine momentum. Not emotional momentum, financial momentum. My savings began growing without effort. My investments increased automatically. My emergency fund started taking shape. And the most surprising part was that nothing felt difficult. Why? Because my lifestyle never adjusted upward. When you do not inflate your life with every raise, your habits remain consistent, and consistency, not income, builds wealth. Let me tell you a short story from that period. A friend of mine had just secured a higher-paying job. He immediately upgraded his car to something shiny and loud enough to announce itself 3 streets away. He signed a lease on a fancy apartment with a kitchen so advanced it belonged in a science museum. And he bought clothes that made him look like he had been sponsored by a fashion magazine. 6 months later, he confessed to me, in complete frustration, that he felt poorer than he did before the raise. He was drowning under new bills, feeling pressured to maintain this new version of himself. Meanwhile, I was earning around the same as him, but I quietly followed the invisible raise rule. I looked like the same old Mark. My car was still modest, my wardrobe was still simple, my expenses were steady, but my bank account? It was growing faster than it ever had in my entire life. He had become a prisoner of his upgrade. I had become the owner of my freedom. That is the power of this rule. Most people look at a raise as a permission slip to live a bigger life. Wealthy people look at a raise as a permission slip to build a bigger future. That subtle difference creates a massive divide between people who remain stuck and people who eventually rise. When you keep your lifestyle frozen and allow only your savings to grow, something magical happens. You suddenly find yourself with the kind of financial cushioning that makes life feel calmer, lighter, more manageable. Opportunities become easier to take, emergencies become easier to handle, and your future becomes something you shape, not something that happens to you. This trick alone took me from financially anxious to financially confident long before I ever made serious money. And if people applied just this one rule at 20, 25, or even 30, it would change their entire decade. Saving trick. 3. The anti-impulse buffer. The rule that stopped me from buying my future away, one small purchase at a time. If there is one habit that kept me broke far longer than necessary, it was the same habit that keeps millions of people paycheck to paycheck today: impulse spending. The tiny, innocent, it is only a little treat purchases that stack up like bricks until they build a financial wall between you and the life you want. Now here is the funny part. When people hear impulse spending, they imagine huge, dramatic purchases: a new car, a designer jacket, a holiday to a place they cannot even pronounce properly. But the truth is far more boring and far more dangerous. Most people are not destroyed by big, stupid decisions. They are destroyed by thousands of tiny, forgettable ones. I learned this during a period of my life where I was earning enough to survive, but not enough to feel safe. I was not buying luxury watches or jet skis. I was simply leaking money everywhere without noticing. A coffee here, a takeaway there. A gadget I convinced myself was for productivity. And the classic culprit of every broke young man, snacks so unhealthy that my younger self is lucky to still be alive. None of these purchases made me broke individually, but together they kept me permanently stuck. Then came the moment that changed everything. One morning, while checking my bank statement, I found myself genuinely confused. I had no idea where my money had gone. It felt like waking up to find your house has been robbed, but the thief had only taken enough items to irritate you, not enough to call the police. That was the day I created what I now call the anti-impulse buffer, a rule that saved me thousands long before I ever earned thousands. The concept is simple but extremely effective. Whenever you want to buy something that is not essential, you must wait at least 72 hours before making the decision, not 72 minutes, not the end of the day. 3 full days. Now, I know what you are thinking. Mark, that sounds easy. Trust me, the first few attempts felt like emotional torture, as if I was resisting the urge to adopt a puppy made entirely of chocolate. But here is what happens during those 72 hours. Your emotional brain shuts up. Your logical brain wakes up. Impulse spending is emotional spending. It is your brain reacting to stress, boredom, comparison, or even the desire to feel momentarily successful. But when you force yourself to wait, you interrupt the emotional loop. You turn a reaction into a decision, and decisions build wealth. Reactions destroy it. Let me give you one of my favorite real stories from this habit. Years ago, I nearly bought a brand new piece of technology because a salesman convinced me it would change my workflow forever. He made it sound like this gadget would practically solve world hunger while making me a cup of tea at the same time. I followed my 72-hour rule. On day 1, I desperately wanted it. On day 2, I still wanted it, but slightly less. On day 3, I looked at reviews, compared features, and realized the entire product was nothing more than a very expensive toy that would end up in a drawer next to the other expensive toys that had promised to change my life. 72 hours saved me over £1,000 that day. It also saved me embarrassment because that gadget became irrelevant 6 months later when a newer version came out. Now, do you know what wealthy people do differently? They do not buy quickly. They buy deliberately. The average person asks, "Can I afford this right now?" Wealthy people ask, "Is this worth owning 3 days from now, 3 months from now, 3 years from now?" The anti-impulse buffer is not about restriction. It is about protection. It protects your future from your present self's emotional shopping habits. Most people do not realize they spend hundreds, even thousands, every year on things they cannot even remember buying. Not because they are irresponsible, but because the brain loves dopamine and hates waiting. This habit forces you to slow down in a world that is constantly trying to speed you up. Once I applied it consistently, something incredible happened. My savings began increasing without any extra income. My stress decreased. My purchases became smarter. And for the first time, my spending actually reflected my goals, not my moods. If you implement just this one trick before the age of 30, you will save more money than most people save by 40. Saving trick 4. The raise resistance rule, the habit that prevents your lifestyle from quietly eating your future alive. If there is one silent wealth killer that destroys more young people's financial futures than debt, bad budgeting, or even impulse spending, it is something far more subtle, something so quiet that most people do not notice it until they wake up one morning, look at their bank account, and say the famous last words of every financially stressed adult: "How on earth am I still broke when I earn more than ever?" The answer is lifestyle creep. And lifestyle creep is not loud. It does not kick down your door and scream, "I am here to ruin your savings." No, lifestyle creep slips into your life like a polite guest who slowly replaces all your furniture when you are not looking. I learned this lesson right around my mid-20s, at a time when I finally started earning what I arrogantly called proper money. I told myself I deserved an upgrade, and of course the upgrades began immediately. My meals got fancier. My wardrobe decided it wanted a personality, and my gadgets multiplied like rabbits left unsupervised. Each upgrade felt reasonable. Each purchase felt justified. Each decision felt like a celebration of my hard work. And yet somehow, even with my income increasing, my savings were not improving at all. If anything, I felt even more financially stretched. I had turned my life into a hamster wheel disguised as a victory lap. That was the moment I learned the truth wealthy people never struggle with. If your lifestyle grows every time your income grows, you never actually get richer. You just get more expensive. So I created what I now call the raise resistance rule. The rule is simple but brutally effective. When your income increases, your lifestyle stays exactly the same for at least 6 months. Not a nicer car, not a bigger apartment, not more nights out, not upgrading your entire wardrobe because you watched one motivational video at midnight. Nothing. You freeze your lifestyle at its current level. You resist the urge to reward yourself. You let the raise go towards something your future self desperately needs: savings, investments, debt clearing, emergency fund building, actual freedom. Now let me tell you the moment this rule became painfully real for me. A friend of mine once received a very generous raise at work. Before the ink had even dried on the contract, he upgraded his car, increased his rent, bought a brand new television that looked like it belonged in a cinema, and justified every decision with the same sentence that destroys countless financial futures: "I can afford it now." 6 months later, he was more stressed than before. His new lifestyle required the new income just to survive, which meant the raise had not improved his life at all. It had simply raised the cost of maintaining it. Do you know what wealthy people do instead? They treat raises like opportunities, not invitations. When they earn more, they do not automatically spend more. They increase the gap between what they earn and what they spend. That gap is where wealth grows. That gap is where opportunity lives. That gap is what gives you breathing room in a world trying to suffocate you with monthly payments. The raise resistance rule trains you to see raises the way rich people do, as a chance to speed up wealth, not inflate lifestyle. And the funniest part? Once you wait 6 months, you usually do not even want the lifestyle upgrades anymore. The emotional excitement fades, and you realize that most of what you wanted was not based on desire. It was based on comparison, pressure, habit, or the illusion that success must be displayed to be real. When you resist the lifestyle upgrade, you do something powerful and extremely rare for someone under 30. You keep your life cheap while your income rises. This is how people jump ahead financially. This is how they build a 4-year advantage in 1 year. This is how they escape the hamster wheel. The raise resistance rule is not glamorous. Nobody will clap for you. Nobody will praise your discipline. But 10 years from now, Your future self will give you the loudest standing ovation you have ever imagined, and that ovation will feel better than any reward purchase ever could. Saving trick number 5, the 1-year value test, the saving habit that separates wealth builders from impulse buyers. This saving trick is the one that completely transformed how I handled my money in my 20s, and honestly, it saved me from making some of the most expensive, ego-driven, financially disastrous purchases of my life. I call it the 1-year value test, and once you start using it, you will never look at your spending habits the same way again. Now, before I explain the rule, let me tell you how I discovered it. I used to be the king of treat purchases. If something looked cool, felt new, or came with shiny packaging that whispered, "Mark, you deserve this," I bought it. I once convinced myself that buying an extremely overpriced jacket was an investment. I do not know who I thought I was investing in. The manufacturer, maybe, because it certainly was not me. I purchased gadgets I barely used, clothing that stayed in the wardrobe like museum pieces, and hobby equipment for hobbies I abandoned after 1 week. I had the enthusiasm of a child and the financial discipline of a squirrel with caffeine addiction. Eventually, it hit me. I was not buying things, I was buying feelings, and the feelings never lasted. This is when I created the 1-year value test. The rule is simple, but brutally effective. Before buying anything non-essential, ask yourself, will this still provide real value to my life 1 year from now? Not imaginary value, not emotional value, not, I might use it someday if 3 planets align and I magically develop a new personality. Real, measurable value. Because here is the truth I wish someone had told me earlier. Most purchases do not fail immediately. They fail quietly, over time, and by the time you notice, the money is long gone. Let me show you how the 1-year value test works by taking you back to one of my most ridiculous purchases. When I was younger, I became obsessed with a specific piece of equipment for a hobby I had barely started. It was expensive, shiny, unnecessarily complicated, and it made me feel like an expert before I had earned the right to own it. I used it twice. Then it sat untouched for years, silently mocking me every time I walked past it. If I had asked myself whether that thing would still hold value in my life a year later, the answer would have been obvious. In fact, the answer should have been, "Mark, please put this back on the shelf before you embarrass yourself financially for the next decade." But I bought it anyway because I did not yet understand something wealthy people learn early. A purchase that does not improve your life for at least a year is not improving your life at all. Now let me give you an example of the opposite, because the 1-year value test can also validate smart spending. Years later, I purchased a piece of equipment for my business. It was not flashy, it was not exciting, it did not look good on Instagram, but it saved me hours of work every week, and it continued to provide value for years. That is the kind of purchase wealthy people get excited about, while everyone else is chasing whatever item gives them a temporary feeling of success. The 1-year value test does something powerful. It forces you to think long-term in a world that trains you to think like a goldfish. It breaks emotional spending and replaces it with intentional spending. It filters out the nonsense that empties your bank account without improving your life. If you want to be wealthy, you must understand something fundamental. Poor spending habits do not feel destructive in the moment. They feel harmless. It is only after thousands of harmless decisions that you realize you have built yourself a financial cage. The 1-year value test prevents that cage from forming. Now, there is a humorous piece of this habit that I must share. Whenever I teach people this trick, they try it for the first time, and suddenly everything fails the test. Everything. They stand in a store holding a pair of designer shoes thinking, Will I use these in a year? And the only honest answer is probably not, unless I become a different person with different feet. This saving habit works because it slows the impulse down long enough for logic to catch up. It turns emotional spending into strategic spending, and more importantly, it helps you keep your money for things that actually improve your life. Use this test consistently, and two things will happen. Your savings will rise faster than ever before. Your regret will drop to almost zero. You will buy fewer things, but you will buy better things. You will spend less money, but you will gain more value. You will stop financially sabotaging yourself for a feeling that lasts only 15 minutes. The one-year value test is one of the simplest habits I ever adopted, and yet it has saved me thousands over the years, possibly more. And if you learn it before you turn 30, you will build a financial foundation most people do not achieve until their late 40s, if ever. Saving trick number 6. The 24-hour impulse breaker rule, the trick that saved me from decades of emotional spending. If the one-year value test protects you from long-term regret, this saving trick protects you from short-term stupidity. I call it the 24-hour impulse breaker, and I wish someone had tattooed it on my forehead when I was 21 because it would have saved me from some truly legendary financial mistakes. Let me start by telling you something uncomfortable. Most of your worst purchases were not logical. They were emotional. They were made in moments when excitement was high, discipline was low, and your brain temporarily forgot you were not wealthy enough to shop like a lottery winner. And trust me, I learned this lesson the hard way. The purchase that still haunts me. Years ago, I walked into a shop to browse. Please understand something. Nobody has ever entered a shop to browse and left financially unchanged. Browsing is simply shopping in disguise. It is the appetizer to the financial disaster waiting in the main course. Well, that day, I saw something sitting on the shelf. Shiny, expensive, completely unnecessary, and yet, in that moment, it felt like destiny. I convinced myself this thing would change my life, improve my productivity, make me look more professional, maybe even make me more attractive, although that part was pure delusion. I bought it instantly, no thought, no hesitation, no pause. 12 days later, I regretted it. 12 months later, I could not believe I ever wanted it. 12 years later, I still remember the sting. That single purchase taught me something crucial. Impulse spending is not a financial problem. Impulse spending is a psychological problem. Therefore, the solution must interrupt the psychology. This is where the 24-hour impulse breaker comes in. Here is how the rule works. Whenever you feel the urge to buy something non-essential, whether it is online, in a store, or recommended by that one overly excited friend who buys everything, you follow one simple rule. You must wait 24 hours before purchasing it. No exceptions. No, but it is on sale. No, but I deserve this. No, what if it sells out? If something cannot survive 24 hours of waiting, it was never valuable to you in the first place. This rule does something extremely powerful. It forces your emotions to cool down long enough for your logic to wake up. Because here is what happens during those 24 hours. After 1 hour, the excitement drops. After 6 hours, the rational brain starts whispering, "Do you really need this?" After 12 hours, you start imagining all your other financial goals. After 24 hours, the truth appears. Either the item still matters, or it never mattered at all. And here is the beautiful part. Most items do not survive the 24-hour test, not even close. A story from one of my students. Several years ago, I taught this rule to a young man who could not keep money for more than 7 minutes. He was the kind of person who bought gadgets he could not operate clothes he never wore, and subscriptions he never remembered signing up for. He struggled with saving, and he believed he had a budgeting problem. But the real problem was impulse. Once he started using the 24-hour impulse breaker, everything changed. The first week, he messaged me saying, "Mark, this rule is annoying. It is ruining my shopping." That is when I knew it was working. 2 weeks later, he messaged again. "I did not buy anything this week. I feel like a genius." 1 month later, he said, "I saved more money in 4 weeks than I saved in the last year." Impulse was the leak. The 24-hour rule was the plug. Why this works better than budget apps or self-discipline. Discipline sounds great, but in the heat of an emotional moment, discipline evaporates. Budgeting tools are helpful, but they cannot stop you from pressing checkout. The 24-hour rule works because it changes the timing, not the temptation. It creates a forced pause, a moment of clarity, a breathing space between desire and decision. Most people overspend because they make decisions too quickly. Wealthy people make decisions slowly, especially spending decisions. Waiting 24 hours turns you into a wealthy thinker, long before you become wealthy. Why the impulse breaker is so powerful. Before age 30, when you build this habit early, something incredible happens. Your savings begin to grow without effort. Your spending becomes intentional. Your lifestyle becomes smarter, not more expensive. Your financial confidence increases because you are actually in control. Here is a secret wealthy people know. Money saved through self-control is money that grows forever. Money spent through impulse is money lost forever. The 24-hour impulse breaker is not a trick. It is a lifelong filter that determines whether your money becomes your servant or your enemy. Use it consistently, and you will save thousands in your 20s, tens of thousands in your 30s, and hundreds of thousands in your 40s and beyond. Saving. Trick number 7, the invisible raises. Method. The habit that quietly built over $200,000 of my wealth without me noticing. Most people believe they need a better job, a higher salary, or a promotion to increase their savings. They imagine some massive financial breakthrough that will suddenly transform their bank account. But let me tell you the truth that wealthy people know and almost nobody else understands. Your income does not make you wealthy. Your behavior after your income increases makes you wealthy. And that brings us to saving trick number 7, the habit that separates people who grow richer every year from people who stay stuck at the exact same level no matter how much they earn. What exactly is an invisible raise? It is simple. Every time your income increases, a raise, promotion, new job, side income, freelance gig, tax refund, or even a one-time bonus, you immediately increase your savings rate before increasing your lifestyle. You do not upgrade your car. You do not move to a fancier apartment. You do not order your food from restaurants 4 more times a week. You do not suddenly pretend you are a celebrity with unlimited money. Instead, you take a percentage of that new income, 20%, 30%, 50% if you are bold, and you instantly redirect it into savings and investments. This becomes an invisible raise because you never feel the money leave. It never becomes part of your normal life. And because you never feel it, you never miss it. This is how wealthy people grow richer year after year, while everyone else wonders why nothing is changing for them. The day I realized my income was lying to me, there was a point in my 20s where I kept getting small increases in income as my business started growing. Nothing huge, but consistent, and every time I earned a little more, I did the same predictable thing most people do. I earned more? Brilliant. Let me celebrate by spending more. Instead of building wealth, I built a lifestyle. Instead of saving, I chased comfort. Instead of preparation, I chased pleasure. But then something happened that changed me forever. One afternoon I sat down with my accountant. He looked at my numbers and said something I will never forget. "Mark, you earned more this year, but you are not richer. You are just busier." That line hit me like a cricket bat to the forehead. He was right. I had more income, but no more savings, more work, but no more wealth, more effort, but no more freedom. I was trapped in lifestyle creep, the silent destroyer of financial futures, and that is when I created the invisible raises method. The transformation was immediate. The next time my income increased, just a small amount, I told myself, right, future me is getting paid first. Before I even felt the new money hit my life, I redirected a large chunk straight into investments. And do you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing changed in my daily lifestyle. Nothing felt different. Nothing felt sacrificed. But my savings grew. My investments grew. My net worth grew. And slowly, quietly, my life changed forever. That is the power of invisible raises. Lifestyle creep, the trap you never see. Coming, the average person increases their lifestyle every time they earn more. New apartment, better car, nicer clothes, more nights out, more gadgets, more subscriptions. They forget exist. More trips, more "I deserve this" purchases. This pattern is so common it feels normal. But normal behavior produces normal results, and normal people are financially stressed, anxious, and trapped. Invisible raises reverse this pattern. Instead of your lifestyle expanding with your income, your future expands. That one shift alone can change your entire financial life. A story about a man who earned more every year and could not escape debt. Let me tell you about someone I once worked with. He earned good money, received raises almost every year, and always seemed successful on the surface. He wore stylish clothes, drove a nice car, went on holidays, and looked financially ahead. But one afternoon he came to me privately and said, "Mark, I do not understand. I keep earning more, but my debt is bigger than ever." When we examined his finances, the problem became obvious within minutes. Every time he earned more, he spent more. Every time he leveled up his income, he leveled up his lifestyle. His financial improvement only existed on the outside. Inside, he was drowning. Had he applied the invisible raises habit, he would have been wealthy by then. Instead, he was exhausted, trapped, and frustrated. Do not repeat his mistake. Why this trick works better before age 30. Your 20s are deceptive. Income tends to rise slowly but steadily, and if you attach lifestyle upgrades to every improvement, you condition yourself for decades of financial struggle. But if you attach savings upgrades instead, the opposite happens. Your savings grow automatically. Your investments grow automatically. Your discipline grows automatically. Your future grows without effort. You build a life your older self will thank you for. Instead of one you will spend years trying to escape. Here is the formula that built over $200,000 without me noticing, every time you earn more. Take at least 30 to 50% of the increase. Redirect it immediately to savings or investing. Do not let it touch your lifestyle. Pretend it never existed. Let compounding handle the magic. 10 years of doing this, even with small raises, creates enormous growth. Most people do not realize this because they let their lifestyle eat the opportunity before it ever reaches their future. The psychological magic behind invisible raises. The true power of this trick is not financial. It is behavioral. Once you detach income growth from lifestyle growth, you gain control, confidence, freedom, stability, the ability to say no to lifestyle pressure, the strength to delay gratification, the clarity to plan ahead, the discipline wealthy people live by. This is not about restriction, this is about protection. Invisible raises protect you from yourself, from your impulses, from your excuses, and from the pressure of trying to look successful instead of becoming successful. If you master only one saving trick before 30, let it be this one, because this single habit does something extraordinary. It builds wealth in the background. It builds wealth without effort. It builds wealth without discipline battles. It builds wealth while your lifestyle remains comfortable, and it builds wealth in a way that compounds year after year after year. If you want financial stability, this trick will give it to you. If you want financial growth, this trick will accelerate it. If you want financial freedom, this trick is the bridge. There comes a moment in every person's life where money stops being a number and finally becomes a mirror. Not a mirror that shows your face, but a mirror that reflects your choices, your habits, your discipline, your fears, and the silent agreements you have made with yourself over the years. When I finally looked into that mirror in my 20s, I did not see the confident young man I thought I was. I saw someone who worked hard but had nothing to show for it. I saw someone who earned decent money but never kept any of it. I saw someone who confused movement with progress. I saw someone who believed he had time, yet wasted years he could never get back. And that is why these 7 saving tricks matter. Not because they sound good, not because they are small tips you can take or leave. They matter because they shape the person you become long before you realize it. They matter because they turn your financial life from a gamble into a strategy. They matter because they protect you from a future where you wake up one morning at 35 or 40 and realize you have been sprinting on a treadmill that never moved you forward. Most people do not understand this until it hurts. They do not change until something forces them. A rejected loan, a crisis, a sudden expense, a drained bank account, a moment of embarrassment, a moment of panic, a moment where they wonder, how did I work this hard and end up here? I have lived that moment. I have watched friends live that moment. I have watched strangers message me with the exact same story. And every time, the cause is the same. They lived without a saving strategy. They lived without structure. They lived without boundaries. They lived in a world where money came in and vanished without explanation. They lived in denial because denial feels comfortable until comfort becomes a cage. Your 20s create the blueprint for the life you will live in your 30s, your 40s, and every decade after that. If you build nothing in your 20s, you will spend your 30s trying to catch up and your 40s trying to repair the damage. But if you build something in your 20s, even something small, you will create a foundation strong enough to support every dream you want to chase later. Savings are not about being responsible. They are about being prepared. They are about reducing the chaos in your life. They are about giving yourself breathing room so that opportunities do not slip through your fingers simply because you were too stressed to grab them. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Picture 2 versions of yourself standing side by side. The first version never built saving habits. He spent emotionally, reacted impulsively, and avoided the uncomfortable but necessary discipline that builds wealth. This version of you enters his 30s with uncertainty in his eyes. He carries stress like a weight on his back. Every emergency shakes him, every bill scares him, every unexpected moment feels like a threat. He lives with fear, even if he hides it behind confidence. Now look at the second version, the version who built the 7 saving habits. He paid his future first. He tracked his money like a business. He built emergency funds that protected him. He increased his savings with every raise. He prioritized assets over lifestyle. He said no to pressure. He said yes to growth. And because of those habits, He walks into his 30s with an entirely different energy. He has stability, he has confidence, he has control, he has options. He makes decisions calmly because he knows he has a financial foundation under his feet. Which version do you want to become? Because the truth is, you get to choose. And the difference between the two versions is not luck. It is not talent. It is not upbringing. It is behavior repeated consistently until it becomes identity. Your savings are not something you do. They are someone you become. When I look back at my own journey, I realize I did not build wealth because I was exceptionally smart. I built wealth because I made fewer financial mistakes than the average person. I did not chase every impulse. I did not spend money to impress people who would forget me days later. I did not sacrifice my future for my present. I did not let short-term pleasure destroy long-term stability. And trust me, there were moments I wanted to. There were moments I wanted the new car, the expensive holiday, the shiny lifestyle. But every time I felt that temptation, I remembered one thing: my future self is depending on me. He cannot save money I refuse to set aside. He cannot invest money I refuse to grow. He cannot live peacefully if I do not live intentionally. Money is emotional. It is tied to pride, identity, status, comfort, fear, and even shame. That is why people struggle with saving. It is not because they are irresponsible, it is because they are human. But here is the beautiful part about being human. You can change. You can decide that the old behaviors end today. You can decide that you are done repeating the same patterns that kept you stuck. You can decide that this is the moment where you stop being reactive and start being strategic. You can decide that your 20s will become the decade that built the freedom your future self will rely on. Never underestimate the power of small saving habits. Small habits compound. Small habits create momentum. Small habits change the course of your life quietly in the background. People love dramatic changes, but the truth is, financial transformation is not dramatic. It is subtle. It is silent. It is slow at first. But eventually, those slow changes begin to accelerate, and one day you look at your bank account, your investments, your stability, your confidence, and you realize something incredible. You built this. You created this. You protected yourself. You changed your life one decision at a time. Let me share something I wish someone had said to me when I was 20. Your 20s are not a race. They are a preparation stage. They are the years where you decide whether your future will be filled with regret or momentum. When you save, you are not sacrificing fun. You are buying freedom. You are buying time. You are buying peace. You are buying the ability to walk away from a job you hate. You are buying the privilege to pursue opportunities others cannot afford to take. You are buying a future where money does not control you. Most people live in the opposite direction. They build a lifestyle so heavy that their future collapses under the weight of their choices. They do not save because they believe saving means missing out. But the truth is, not saving is the real thing that makes you miss out. You miss out on stability. You miss out on freedom. You miss out on options. You miss out on control. You miss out on the version of yourself you deserve to become. You do not need perfect discipline. You do not need perfect knowledge. You do not need perfect income. You need consistency. You need patience. You need the courage to do the opposite of what the average person does. Because the average person is stressed, overwhelmed, underprepared, and financially fragile. The average person earns money today and watches it disappear tomorrow. The average person never sees financial freedom, not because they could not achieve it, but because they never built habits that pointed them toward it. These saving tricks are not secrets. They are tools. And tools are worthless unless you pick them up. So pick them up, use them, Build your foundation now, not later. There will always be temptations. There will always be something shiny calling your name. There will always be an excuse to spend instead of save. But remember this: every pound you save is a soldier fighting for your future. Every habit you build is a wall protecting your peace. Every decision you make is a brick in the foundation of your freedom. And freedom is worth every ounce of discipline it takes. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not stuck. You are standing at the beginning of a path that can change your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. But the direction you take from this moment on is entirely up to you. Saving is not about deprivation. Saving is about creation. You are creating the life your future self will thank you for. If you commit to these 7 habits, your financial future will not drift. It will rise. It will strengthen. It will compound. And one day, maybe sooner than you expect, you will look back at this moment and say, "That was the turning point. That was the day everything shifted. That was the moment I stopped surviving and started building." Now, if you want the next step, the real step, the step that teaches you exactly how to use the money you save so that it grows automatically instead of gathering dust in a bank account, I have the perfect guide waiting for you. But do not click on it just yet. Make sure you subscribe if you want to build wealth purposefully, protect your future, and escape the traps that keep most people financially stuck for life. All right, I will see you over there.